Bay Area Backstage, on location at the Silicon Valley Comic-Con. Science fiction, science fact, cosplay, comic books, amazing panels. Silicon Valley Comic-Con.
Welcome to Silicon Valley Comic-Con.
Hey guys, I'm down here in San Jose. I'm Arthur Suydam. The little kids call me the Zombie King. I'm actually one of the artists for The Walking Dead. I did all the Marvel zombies. I'm the artist for Deadpool, Black Panther, Moon Knight, all the rest of this stuff. Army of Darkness, Red Sonja, Vampirella. Yeah, I can't remember the rest of it. In my house, in my family, it's a fine art family. The entire family, meaning all the uncles, the aunts, the grandfathers, great-great-grandfathers, they're all fine artists, and all are musicians as well. So they're all multi-instrumentalists. They all play like 4 or 5 instruments. At the advent of the Civil War in the 1800s, there were a dozen fine art painters who won American Fine Artist recognition for the first time worldwide. They were called the Hudson River Artists and Hudson River Painters, and 2 of those were Suydams. So one was James Suydam and one was Henry Suydam. So then later on, at the around 1900 to 1915, America's foremost architectural artist was E.H. Suydam. He's one of my great uncles as well. And I'm the latest Suydam, and I'm the guy that started all the zombie stuff. Favorite, to tell you the truth. I mean, I like the challenge of it all. So for me, kind of like the more challenging it is, the more I like it. So I like to get in there and figure how to do something interesting and fresh with the character and what's gone before, you know, design, that kind of thing. So, but I liked working on it. It was a lot of fun. They're what a heck of a band to see live. What a great band to see live. I mean, I watched that. They have that Kiss Live in Vegas video that's on YouTube. I think it's the best they ever sounded. I watch it all the time, over and over again. Wow, great band, great live band. For me, I'm a big fan of Tommy Thayer. I think
he's great.
For me, what I like about him is I like what he did for the band, which you know, he's a producer. He's producing them, and he did that. He produced the whole Kiss Live in Vegas concert and the recording, and that's the best I've ever heard them. He really captured, well, of course it is a live concert, but the fidelity and the sound of the band is the best I've ever heard. Gene's singing, the older he gets, for me, like Willie Nelson, the better he sings, or the better his sound, his voice. He's matured into his voice. You know, I wasn't really big on him when they were younger, but Gene's voice, as he matured, has got a lot more, for me, appropriate for the kind of music they sing, which is that power pop rock and heavy rock and stuff. I think it sounds better now than he ever did. My training is all 16th century Dutch and Italian, figurative art, you know, live nudes and all that kind of thing, and anatomy. So I'm trained as a sculptor, as a classical sculptor, as a painter, as you know, and all the different mediums, that kind of thing. There's a school there called the New York Academy of Figurative Art. It's a recreation of the school of Michelangelo and Raphael, basically, based on their notes. They kind of tried to recreate the school, and that's the school I got the best suggestion in the world. Want to know what it is?
Yes.
For kids coming up that want to get into the business, take the Proco course. It's on YouTube. It's the best drawing course in the world. He's teaching the Andrew Loomis course. And he draws along with you, so that's the best way to learn. And it's the best instructor, best instructions, best course that's ever come down the pike is that Andrew Loomis course. Basically, he teaches you how to, he teaches you how to have drawing as a muscle memory. Nobody else teaches that really. basically plan out a picture, put marks on a piece of paper or canvas before you go in and draw and paint, so that the picture you end up with is the picture you had in your mind when you started. And that's the only course that I've ever seen, and I've taken them all, that actually teach that. So I speak highly of the program. I think very highly of it. The internet, where now you don't have to be vetted by, it's like in the music business. You could be the greatest guitar player in the world, which, for instance, Danny Gatton was, and nobody would give him the time of day, and so struggling your whole life to try to get somebody to sign you, and nobody will sign you, and you get bitter after a while, or some guys do, so with the internet, it provides an opportunity for people to put their music out there where ears can hear it, which is the name of the game, and maybe develop a following. So I think I agree with you that I think that's something like that's going to be the future of it. And I hope that people get back into reading and get off their social media and get back into books and magazines and read, because there's such a great loss if you don't. According to me. For me, I think it's maybe like the last bohemian neighborhood in the United States is the East Village. It always was, always has been a bohemian neighborhood. I like that, and so that's where I feel like I fit in, and a lot of people into the arts, dancers, writers, poets. It's a good place to fit in. You're surrounded in a culture of other really creative people and intellectuals, so it's a good environment for creative people to be in. Won the Grammy for Bruce Springsteen about 6 years ago. That was the Secret Session stuff. And I'm a guitar player, lead vocalist, lead guitar player. I play a couple of other instruments as well. I'm a composer, and I'm retired now because the artwork has got me so busy, and because all the stupid clubs got rid of their live bands and replaced them with sports TVs. It's like I might as well draw. So yeah. Hey guys, thanks for coming out to the Silicon Comic Con, and thanks for checking out my art. Much appreciated. Stay safe.
How long did it take for you to create this costume?
I don't remember.
Or did you just make it? Or
I just remember, I don't know. It took a while.
I think about 2 months.
No, sweet.
Oh, look at the beavers.
how long did it take for you to create this thing?
Oh, a couple weeks.
In the workshop, just doing it?
Yeah, I just did my little workshop. Went by pretty quickly.
What are the materials?
Oh yeah, you just got your regular foam, and with the little eye, got the little eyes from Michaels, and the fake leaves, beavers from Amazon. And then, I made it convenient with some backpack arms. I was just at San Diego Comic-Con, and Star Wars Celebration this year, so it's nice. It's nice to get back to it after a couple of years.
How are you, man?
Hey. Oh, that's great.
So, we're here at Silicon. How long did it take for you to create this costume you got on?
I've had it for years, actually, and I'm part of the Fast Food Avengers, the McVengers, and there's a bunch of us around.
So is this the first time you've unveiled this costume, or has it been unveiled before?
No, I wore it at Dragon Con, but I'm part of the tested contributors, and so I thought it'd be fun to show off in a little bit of cosplay, given that all of us are here this week.
Awesome, you look great.
Thank you.
I didn't feel things were going good with film and TV. So I took that script, and as shocking as it may seem, I put it in the waste basket. And a friend who was with me at the time said, when I was in New York trying to get started, I went wherever, at any time, where I had to go to maybe get a part, get a shot. And I said, yeah. I retrieved it, flew back to LA and met Bob Zemeckis. And that was that.
Seems like it turned out pretty good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't do much fun of that anymore.
In Back to the Future Part 3, was that actually you on the footplate of the locomotive, or was that like a stunt double? What was it like working on the steam engine?
For the steam engine in Back to the Future 3,
Yeah.
was it you or was it a stunt double?
Yeah.
You behind the controls?
I gotta say,
Did you like have an engineer telling you, okay, this is what you need to do in order to not blow up? This is the throttle. This is the brake. If you have any trouble, we'll take over.
Did you actually have to drive the train and not blow up? I'm gonna guess you had a stunt coordinator.
Locomotives are incredible. They're this huge slab of metal, gigantic, with all the gears that go around, steam coming out here and there. So they get it warmed up and going, with a real engineer and all that. And then it was just a straight track with no traffic. And so, and then when you had to shoot, you went into the space, shot the thing, get out of it. So it was very well attended. Yeah.
Do you have a standout scene that was really logistically challenging that you remember, that you're like, I don't know how we're gonna do this?
They were all about the same. Because it doesn't let up. And Doc never let up.
Also true, yes.
So.
Yeah. We're gonna head over there.
Wow. Hi, Chris. Oh my God, that's what I sound like? So, I've been a fan of a lot of your work since I was a kid. So I'm curious, who did you have more fun playing? Dr. Brown or Uncle Fester?
Well, Uncle Fester has a slight edge. Because I grew up through my adolescence and beyond with a magazine that was always present, a weekly magazine. And it had cartoons in it. It was a serious, kind of magazine, but it had cartoons. And almost every issue would have a cartoon by Charles Adams. So whenever and I really, really dug Uncle Fester. Back then. And then decades later, I got a call saying, would I like to be Uncle Fester in a film? I was blown away. I thought, I look at myself in the mirror and I don't see Uncle Fester. By any stretch. So anyway, that was so cool to be able to do that, do him on film, create the whole character, and the physics. It was just, I don't believe this is happening. So Doc's, he's an amazing guy, But had an Uncle Fester in the blood.
Is it safe to guess that when you got the Addams Family script, you did not put it in the discard pile?
No.
that one made it to the read. Let's do this.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Hi. So one of my favorite movies ever is the animated movie Anastasia. So I was curious of what your favorite part of working on that project was.
Oh, I loved it. Rasputin is such a terrible man. He's just so wicked and he's just evil on 2 feet. And the way they were portraying him visually was really a lot of fun. So they wrote it, but it was fun.
Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Lloyd. Thank you again. My wife and I have been trying to track you from Japan and every other show for like the last 10 years. And today we finally got to meet you. You've been a childhood hero for me, but the reason I'm standing up here and asking this question is for my mom. She started me on you with Taxi. And, she told me to ask you, was Danny DeVito hard to work with?
What? Danny DeVito's?
Was Danny hard to work with?
Oh. Danny is a dear. He's a wonderful, wonderful person, and he's a joy to work with. His humor and smartness, and just whole, So, but he can turn the page, and you get that taxi dispatcher guy.
Thank you. Got Marty over here.
Hello, my name is AJ, and my question for you was, what was your most memorable moment on the set of Back to the Future?
Most memorable moment from the set of Back to the Future. Rapping.
Huh?
Rapping it, finishing it.
No. I guess we had a shoot one night that included where I'm in the bar, and I take a shot, and then they put something down my throat because I'm burning up, and then my head goes to the double. Why am I saying that? I love that. And then they did the scene, the what do you call it? The scene where they're having a kind of a festival at night, and there's a band playing, and me and Claire dance. It's all that romantic stuff, and it's small, and the band was ZZ Top. And when we weren't shooting, making a lighting change or something, ZZ Top would play with some local musicians, and what a treat. That was a fun night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi. Yeah, so I had a quick question about your movie, your role in Food Fight. How did you land that role?
How did you land your role in Food Fight?
Food fight? Food fight. I don't know. I'm trying to get it back in my head. Food fight. What happened in that?
It was a bunch of store characters like Mr. Clean and Count Chocula, has a whole bunch of characters, and you voiced, I believe, Mr. Clipboard in that movie.
Well, yeah. Okay.
I'm gonna guess it was probably along the lines of you auditioned or they came to you and you got the role in Food Fight. Same guess? Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Hi, my favorite from you is Cyber Chase, but in Back to the Future 3, they say that that was your first on-screen kiss. Is that true, and is it still true?
Was your first on-screen kiss in Back to the Future 3?
I don't think it was hardly even a kiss. It was the nearest I came to it. On film anywhere. Clara, yeah. But I don't know if I would remember that.
Not a memorable one, apparently, if it was.
Yeah.
But you have since had on-screen kisses, was the second part of the question.
No.
Oh.
No, you go through what I've done. Somehow romance has evaded. Oh yeah, in the Star Trek #3, what's the name of it?
The Search for Spock.
The Search for Spock. At the beginning, I'm in my cockpit explaining something to somebody. You know, I got it all on. And there was somebody I had kind of a romance, a potential fling, was in a lady in a space vehicle, like in another galaxy or something. And for political reasons, I had to blow her up.
It's a tragic romance. Yeah.
Yes, hello. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Lloyd. So, as was mentioned earlier, you have a very prolific career spanning over 240 credits according to IMDb. Out of all of your roles, being on stage, live action in camera, or being in front of a microphone, what style of acting would you prefer to do for the rest of your life if you could choose just one?
Different mediums.
Yeah, so like out of the 3 different mediums, what would be your preferred style of acting?
That's a tough one because I really like doing theater, and that's the way I got started, you know, from high school, even earlier, and in school plays, and then I just went right from high school to drama school in New York, and theater was that's what, you know, movies was something way over the horizon. And I was in New York for 13 years doing theater. And then I got Cuckoo's Nest. That, as a consequence, an agent in LA called me and talked to me in New York and said that if I ever came out, they would like to have lunch. And it took me about 2 seconds. I just went out, and then I started doing film. And I love doing film. I guess you could just say that theater has a certain kind of special excitement because once the play starts, you can't stop. You have to keep carrying it to the end. And going with the energy, the momentum of that. In a film, you can stop, go, you know, at the discretion of the director. But it reaches many more people, you know. And I love that too. I like to be able to communicate.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to try and get to everyone, so we're going to ask you to go a little bit faster with your questions.
Thanks for being here so late in the evening. The question is, my wife and I recently saw a episode of Expedition Unknown, and we were wondering what your experience was working with Josh Gates on that episode and how fun you had.
That was where we were hunting down a DeLorean.
Back to the Future.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun.
It looked like it.
Yeah, it was very, I learned a lot about the DeLorean. But I know it's extraordinary. And a gentleman in Houston bought the entire, all of what was of the DeLorean from Belfast, Ireland, where it was first put together. And he built 2 big warehouses in Houston. And there are enough parts, totally. I mean, rows and rows of this and that. And there's enough there to build more DeLoreans with the original parts. But there's the hitch, something like, the parts have to be new and redesigned or whatever to pass current, rules. But it was a great show.
Thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
Hello. If I may, I was wondering, as an actor, have you ever caught yourself slipping into a role you've portrayed before in your daily life?
That's in my daily life. Yeah, now and then. I mean, I'm more, it's like if I'm doing a role and I hear a voice of a character I've done before, like I'll suddenly say, oh my God, I'm sounding like Reverend Jim. And I don't want that. I try not to be doing something that's something I've done before, if it's possible. But yeah, I could be sitting around feeling like Uncle Fester.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
In your acting training, who was your favorite instructor?
Oh, do you know?
Yeah, that's what
I knew it.
I don't know.
My favorite instructor was an extraordinary instructor. His name was Sandy Meisner. And in 1960, I went to the name of the Playhouse School of the Theater in New York City. And he'd been there for like 32 years teaching. And I was accepted. And then when it came time to get started, he'd left the name of the Playhouse and gone and been a casting director for Universal, I think, or Fox Studios. I continued in the 2-year curriculum at the school, and then came out of it and felt I still didn't get it. When I went there to learn, I didn't get it. And then Mr. Meisner came back to New York, and I caught up with him and studied with him for about 2 years. And he really has a lot to do with my career going anywhere. So, yeah, he was
Pretty influential.
yeah, good man.
Thank you. And that way.
Hello, Mr. Lloyd.
Hi.
I have an Anastasia question for you. And in that movie, you played Rasputin. And
Play what?
For Anastasia. For Anastasia and Rasputin.
Oh, yeah.
And the Rasputin character had a great villain song, In the Dark of the Night, but it was sung by Jim Cummings. Would you have liked to have sung that song yourself for the movie?
That's interesting because I sang it, recorded it, and then when the record came out, there was that guy you just mentioned.
Never heard of him.
Yeah. And, you know, and I didn't try to do it, you know, things work out that way sometimes, you know. But when I listened to it, I felt that's my voice. And so to this day, maybe it wasn't my voice, maybe I just felt like it was. Somebody higher up has to clear the air.
Thank you. We only have a few minutes left, so we're gonna go fast, y'all, because we're gonna get y'all in. Let's go.
I'll try to squeeze my answers.
Hi, Mr. Lloyd. My name is JJ. It's a dream come true meeting you today. But my question is, with the recent huge success of Rick and Morty, I was just wondering what you thought about the character of Rick sort of being made in your image.
I have watched it. I mean, no. And,
You have been on Rick and
Huh?
Morty. You've been on Rick
Yeah,
and Morty.
yeah. You know, so I didn't look at it, watch it all the time, but you know, you know, one of the used to speculate that there would be a Back to the Future 4 if somebody came up with an idea that you just couldn't say no, you know. It's got to be that strong. And I don't see that happening at the moment. But what if, what's his name? Morty.
Rick?
Yeah. Rick and Morty are way out in the universe, some kind of world. And Doc and Marty land on this place, and they meet. And how do you do that?
That'd be awesome.
But I think it would be kind of an interesting concept.
We'll give Justin Roiland a call. Thank you.
Hi. So I just wanted to ask, wait. Out of all of the Back to the Future movies, which one was your favorite?
Number 3. Number 3, it had horseback riding. That was fun. And it had all the stuff that happened on that train. And Doc had a romance. So that's sort of...
The triple threat.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Lloyd. You said earlier that you don't have much luck in terms of on-stage romances, but you had a great and unforgettable cameo in the Always Sunny Christmas special, and I was wondering how that came about.
For the Always Sunny Christmas special, how did they approach you?
Oh, yeah, I've done 2 for Hallmark. They're a few years apart, but...
I think the audience is really trying to get you into a romance role. Like, that's what they're kind of, they really want to find you a romance role. Like, I feel like they're on your side for this. We want to get you into some sort of, you know.
Yeah, I'll be grandpa. But that's okay, too.
Yeah. Thank you. Oh.
Yeah, I don't know that there was any connection between the 2.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Lloyd, as a fan of the movie, I was wondering, Back to the Future, where did you draw your inspiration for the Doc character? Was it a different scientist that you had learned of, or what?
Well, partially, I kind of, from reading about people who come up with ideas, how they can have some solution or something that they can't find a solution for. Some, and they just think about it, and one day they're doing something totally apart from their obsessions, and like they're getting on a bus, and bingo, like Doc falls and his head hits the edge of the toilet, and suddenly the solution is there. So and Doc is very much that, and I love that. And I read Einstein, the guy who did E was MC squared, not the puppy. And it just kind of fascinated me. And there was a conductor, classical music conductor, by the name of Leopold Stokowski. He was head of the Philadelphia Orchestra. And I had a record he made, the old 78, the 50s somewhere, with the Philadelphia Orchestra. And he's playing a classical piece called The Planets. And he's standing like, he had long white hair, went straight down, and he's standing like that. And just, a genius, about to make magic. And I thought, I want to look like that. So that's how that happened.
Thank you. We're going to go really fast through these last ones.
Okay. In Dennis the Menace, how was it working with Walter Matthau?
Oh, that was wonderful. I liked him a lot. I like what he'd done, the films he'd done. He's a good man.
Any stories about him on the set?
You what?
Any stories from the set?
No, except that he was great to work with.
The best type of story is that type.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's okay.
What was your reaction when you first saw the DeLorean for Back to the Future 1?
When I first saw the DeLorean,
What was your reaction when you first saw the DeLorean?
I thought it looks like the future. It looked like they chose exactly the right vehicle for it.
Thank you. And our last question.
Do you have a particular highlight or special memory from when you did Star Trek: The Search for Spock and got to work with Leonard Nimoy when he directed that film?
Favorite Leonard Nimoy memory?
Oh, he was such a good man. And we both lived in the same town for a while, so I'd run into him at the deli or whatever. And he's a good man, a gentleman, very smart, patient. He knew what he wanted and how to achieve it. And I have a lot of admiration for him. And I was stunned that I was suddenly working on that film. Because I didn't, somebody put in the word or knew more about me than I did. So, yeah, he's a good guy.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you all for being here. You're having fun,
So yeah, I'm really excited to have a wonderful group of panelists, including one panelist that is coming in remotely over Zoom. and I will let them introduce themselves. Jay, do you want to start off?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Dr. Jay Benson. I work in the Intelligent Systems Division at NASA Ames Research Center. I work on artificial intelligence solutions to multiple problems. Right now I'm working on the Lunar Gateway space station, and pretty much a lot that has to do on the space station with AI. And right now we're working on life support systems there for when it's uncrewed and crewed and changing basically the atmosphere in the space station. So I'm also the LGBTQ+ advisory group chair at NASA.
Hi, my name is Dorsa Shirazi. I work at Aeromechanics branch at NASA. I support the revolutionary technology liftoff and takeoff at NASA, and mostly I'm looking at the simulation, like you can say as air taxis, or also supporting the testing in the wind tunnel as well. Other project I'm working on, it's the second generation of the Mars helicopter, and also I'm part of the board member of the Early Career Advisory Group at Ames.
Good. Hi everyone, my name is Franz Defe. I'm the head of the Atmospheric Science program at NASA Ames. I have been with NASA for over 22 years, spent 21 years at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center before I moved over to NASA Ames. And my work mainly focuses on looking at the impact of humans on climate. You know, climate, as you know, is a big deal now. We are beginning to experience extremes in terms of wildfires. You know, California, of course, is famous for that, and also other places flooding. And you have been watching the news in Europe. We are seeing these heat waves across the whole continent. So that's what we've been studying over the years.
All right, and Daniela, feel free to introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, can you hear me okay? All right, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here with you this afternoon. My name is Daniela Scalise, and I'm joining you from the lands, waters, and skies of the Piscataway people in a place known by some today as Annapolis, Maryland, United States. I'm the education and outreach lead for NASA's astrobiology program, and I too have been with NASA for just over 22 years. So it's been a great pleasure to work in astrobiology, which is basically this continuous thread from working scientifically to understand our origins, all the way from the cosmic level to the origins of our Earth and our planet and the diversification of life, through to searching for life elsewhere on other worlds. So thanks again, Frank, for the invitation. It's great to be with you all.
We're so grateful to have you here. Yeah, so the panel is basically going to be a conversation between us for a little bit, and then we're going to open it up to questions. Before we get going, just to reiterate the recommendation from the convention to wear masks. We're still in a pandemic. We want you to be able to see our lovely faces and be a little distanced, but we encourage you for your own safety and that of your neighbors to wear a mask if you're able. Yeah, to start off our conversation, a big part of thinking about representation in a lot of these questions is being able to see yourself in places that often historically don't have a lot of diversity. And so I wanted to hear from each of you, what were the stories, what were the people, what were the things that allowed you to see yourself to be a part of NASA? And anyone can go for it first. Go first.
Me? Okay.
Yeah.
So I think at NASA itself, I've always been interested in science fiction, and I've always, from the beginning of my life, I can't remember a time where I wasn't. I've also had a lot of interest in computer science, which is what I'm doing now, and I also have had that in my life for a long time. I used to sleep with a calculator when I was 5 years old. So I was always really interested in science, particularly computing. And as I was growing up, I got fascinated with actual space travel, not just the science fiction kind. So that really drove me. There are a few people that in my life that encouraged me to pursue that goal, including my father. And I think there are people also that are historical figures, particularly Alan Turing, who was a influential figure for myself as I was figuring out whether someone like myself, a gay man, could ever do science. He was the father of computer science and artificial intelligence, so that was pretty inspirational.
Well, the first time I knew NASA was through an interview that I was watching. I was in elementary school. There was like a scientist and engineer were talking about their project. I didn't understand anything they were talking about, but it's very complicated, but I remember how excited they were and how happy they were. They were humble, but at the same time they have the humor. And genuinely they loved their job. And it's like, I don't know what they're doing, but I want to have their jobs. So that's said with me. I remember the logo. But probably most of you can't hear my accent. I wasn't born here. So I just knew whenever I moved here, I wanted to work for NASA.
Yeah, that's for me is a very interesting question, because as somebody who was born and raised in Kenya, I didn't know much about NASA in the early years, and I would only come to know about NASA back in 1998. And some people had visited Africa, in South Africa in particular, and I was at the tail end of my doctorate degree. So, and then they came over, they were saying we were looking for places whereby they can validate the NASA satellite data sets. And I was like, wow, what's that, right? Yeah. It was very, very interesting. And so that was the first hook, right? These guys flying spacecrafts 700 or so kilometers to space, looking up everywhere. And by then, I was more involved in taking measurements on the ground, right? So I would move from places to places, sometimes sampling air, and then looking at how much pollution is there, and how is that affecting air quality and human health. So those were things that I was very interested in. And then I came to learn that from space, we can actually look over many places, not just one area, like when I was walking with my equipment measurement, but we can circle the whole planet from a vantage point of space and be able almost to do something.
So it was thinking about how to solve problems on Earth that led you to NASA, and realizing how we can use space to help people here.
Yeah, so you know, there you go, right? I said, well, and that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
So when I got what we call a postdoc, you know, to NASA Goddard, and the first time I came in, I met all these people, big names I used to see when I was reading books and so forth. I said, this is the place I want to be. And if I go back, you know, a couple of steps backwards, from the one go, when people ask me, what is one word that defines who you are? I say, I'm curious, I'm just curious. And I can give so many stories about that, but I won't.
Okay, yeah. Go for it, Danielle.
Thanks. So for me, the inspiration is less. The inspiration for me is with the learners that I serve. I'm a science educator, astrobiology educator. My work, I had the great privilege of partnering with Native American communities across the U.S. and elsewhere, and it's working with the kids that inspire me to stay at NASA and to bring every bit of power and inspiration and excitement and energy that it has, that it carries to them.
Wanting to stay is also, I think, a really important one. And I realized I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Frank Tavares. I use they, them pronouns. I'm in the NASA Office of Communications, and I also work with the LGBTQ advisory group as the communications officer, which is part of how I got to know Jay. And you know, to answer my own question a little bit, I remember when I was an intern, you know, the fact that there was an LGBTQ advisory group was part of what made me feel like NASA could be a place, right, where I could find community. And I think I'm glad you brought that up, because how do you see yourself in an organization, and then how do you just, once you're in, how do you feel like it's a place you can make a home, that you can stay in the long term, and the importance of community and especially with the educational work that you do, finding joy through the work itself is also really important. But yeah, I guess on that point, I'll pick on you, Jay. Do you have any comments on like what role that advisory group had for your own journey as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I was closeted at work before I came to NASA, and seeing that, just similar to Frank, seeing the LGBTQ plus advisory group and slowly joining it, and then slowly kind of coming out at NASA. It's really my at work coming out story is through NASA and being fully out at this point, really. So it was instrumental having the representation and having a named part of an organization that felt like it could be for me. Absolutely was vital, important.
Yeah. And if either of you have comments on how you found community, within NASA, I would love to hear those thoughts.
Sure. For me, I started with Early Korea Advisory Group as a board member. I was the event officer, and through that, I thought like we need to celebrate everyone and different reasons. Like we were finding, we were celebrating Women's LGBTQ Heritage Month, the African American Heritage Month, Native American Heritage Month, and so and we were hearing stories of our co-workers and like trying to create that community to make sure that all of us feeling welcome and we are having someone represented our group there and making everyone feeling not only welcome but also part of it. So that was something that I found very heartwarming for me, and I felt like that's the place that I wanted to stay. Everyone are welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if I could jump in here as well. For me, looking at the diversity of the workforce at NASA, one of the things that is very clear when you look at the people who look like me, right? In science, they're not men. And this was even very clear. In 2020, I talk about the George Floyd moment, right? And the whole of NASA, of course, was galvanized around this issue. And we felt that we need to do something about this issue. I remember it was a town hall, and me and some of my colleagues, we had counted the numbers, right? And I will say, I'd been with NASA for about 21 years. And up to that particular point, when I joined, we were 3 scientists. Same 2020, we were 3, right? Yeah. And I was saying, this is a disappointment. And everybody was saying, oh, wow, is it? They'll go count, right? Go count. You need to see. And so one of the things we've been doing now is we have to increase the diversity. We have to bring to the workforce people who look like me, because if you go out there and look at the demographics, Black people are probably anywhere from 13 or 14% of the entire population, and the percentage in the science is much, much smaller. So one of the call I usually make is that we led human race to the moon. And we're going to do it again, by the way, this Monday, right?
Yeah.
And so NASA leads, right? Leads the way. And I keep saying it's about time. We're also going to lead the world in bringing more minorities into science.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think, so nothing inspires me more than that, right? So we can be able to bring more people into science, not just people who look like whoever, but that looks like our country.
Exactly.
And NASA can do it.
Yes. And I'm glad you brought up the George Floyd protests of the summer of 2020, because I think that for a lot of people within the agency was a particularly galvanizing moment, because the weekend that George Floyd was murdered was also the same weekend we were in a very celebratory mode at NASA because of a commercial crew launch that was happening. And there was this huge dissonance that I think, especially in comms, right, where we are the public face of NASA, there's this huge dissonance between what was happening in the country and this very sobering reality of how real systemic racism is. And the fact that we were, in a very neutral way in some ways, just having a very celebratory tone towards this rocket launch. And it reminded me of a lot of the conversations that happened during the Apollo era, when civil rights leaders were protesting at the same moment we were celebrating the Apollo missions. And there's this conversation around, why are we sending people to the moon while people, and especially black people, are in poverty in this country, right? And so I would love to hear anybody's thoughts on how NASA can essentially speak to the realities of what our country and world is still grappling with as we reach for the stars and have these higher goals. So it's a good question, but that's why we're here. So if anyone wants to take that one.
I can jump in myself on that question. So one of the initiatives we have now is we started a program called SASA, S-A-S-A. If you Google NASA, SASA, S-A-S-A, you see a lot of information about that. So what we're trying to do in that program is we are working with minority-serving institutions, institutions that are more dedicated to the minorities. We're working with them. Currently, we're working with about 6. They are all on the eastern side of the U.S., Baltimore, Washington, D.C., and so forth. We want to expand to this area as well. And what we're doing is work with students who are in their first year and second year, university students, and then expose them to the science that goes on with NASA. This year alone, we had 25 students who joined us for 8 weeks, and each student was getting 6,000 pocket money, I would say, because we were paying for their accommodation. We were also paying for their transportation. So it was a cool program. And they also got to fly on a NASA aircraft. You know, how cool is that, right? They got to fly on a NASA aircraft. You know, see what the scientists do, how they do the science, and so forth. Our goal is, by exposing students very early to science, right? Then they will get more interested and also follow the same career path. And we don't want just to sort of bring them, expose them to NASA and then NASA science. We also want to follow with them so that maybe want to bias them so that they can choose a career in science. And so we are kind of creating that pipeline, working with the universities for minority-serving institutions, and then creating that pipeline so that they can join the workforce at some point. So I think that's one initiative that NASA has embarked on. We are hoping that we'll be able to expand this program to other programs as well, so that we can solve this particular problem. We had the man to the moon, right? We're going to Mars as well, so we've got to do it even now, right?
Yeah. And what I think is great about SASA is it recognizes that the financial barriers are part of it, right? Like you need to be able to support people and also support their goals on their own terms, right? And Danielle, I'm going to throw this over to you. I know the work that you do, especially with various underserved communities in education, is also a big part of how we can bring in more voices into how we think about space. So I was wondering if you wanted to talk a little bit about your work.
So, like I said, I've had the great good fortune and privilege to be brought into relationship and partnership with a number of American Indian Alaska Native communities around the US and Canada mostly. And we're very specific about what we do. We don't just sort of bring STEM education as we know it, so to speak, into Native communities. We take a long time to build a relationship. That's the most important thing. In fact, many of us who are doing this work would espouse that the relationship is actually more important than the work itself. So we spend a long time building those relationships. And we respect tribal sovereignty and self-determination, and we are able to hold multiple ways of knowing, multiple bodies of knowledge as equally valid and equally valuable. And it's upon those foundations that we're able to co-create and bring together the traditional knowledge of the community, typically star knowledge, because we're NASA, but the traditional knowledge, the cultural knowledge, Native science, together with westernized science, and co-create programs and materials for the youth of the community. So in that way, I think with respect to the sort of future workforce, if you will, I think what we're seeing is that when Native kids are grounded in their own, I should say that the traditional knowledge is always taught first in Native places, in Native spaces, in Native languages, by Native people, in Native, everything. That comes first, and then the science comes alongside that afterward, and that's very on purpose. So, because it produces this grounding effect that, oh, my culture has a highly sophisticated, cosmology. We understand the origins. And here comes a Western scientific concept, and it's basically the same. They're totally resonating in so many ways, so many beautiful ways. So that grounds the youth in their own cultural identity and allows them to seamlessly pull together that cultural identity with a scientific identity and not be sort of afraid of pursuing STEM and pursuing technology and science and things like that. So that's what we're seeing with the way we're working. So we hope that has not only a strong impact on the learners themselves and their communities and their lifeways, so their knowledge and language are revitalized, but also the health of the future STEM workforce.
I especially appreciate what you do in your educational work where it's not about saying Western science is correct and whatever other beliefs you have are wrong, but it's actually about there are multiple ways to know and understand the universe and how can we meld those. And I think that when we think about what does a future vision of space exploration look like, that's important to remember that as we increase access and diversity, we have to also make sure that communities that are being brought into spaces that are traditionally predominated by Western thought we're able to actually change what our goals are, what our vision is. I think what I'm excited about in this conversation is talking about the imaginative aspect and to some extent the speculative aspect of how does inclusion as a value actually change how we imagine space exploration. I think often when we talk about space exploration, it can often have like somewhat pseudo-colonial overtones talking about pioneering on new worlds. But if we recognize that might not be a narrative that is accessible to everyone or even really what we're going for, how does that open up new possibilities for what we can imagine space to be? So I know we haven't heard from Jay or Dorsa in a while, so if you want to chime in on that.
Okay. How much time do we have? Because I have a lot of things to say. Our vision for the future, and I think particularly when it comes to this notion of inclusion as we go into space, so making sure a variety of different kinds of people get that opportunity and a variety of people get the opportunity to explore, but also when it comes to what it means to be colonists on a planet with all of those different kinds of humans. So my most favorite thing in the world, as a few people on this panel know, is Star Trek. And there is the prime directive in Star Trek. I'm certain most of you are familiar, but for those that aren't, the notion is that there's non-interference with societies. Well, mostly it's speaking of the fully developed sentient societies, so groups of people that look very much like humans. Usually, sometimes Star Trek is interesting about bringing in non-humanoid looking things, but for the most part, that's the idea. And we have this idea of looking at life as mostly human-like in some way or another. We can eventually understand what this life is, how it communicates, but that's not to say that there might be some sort of intelligence where we land on a planet and we think that there is nothing smart here, but we might not know what smart is for that planet. So I think it's important to consider that as we go into space. And that is inclusive of even our solar system. We don't really know everything that's on Mars right now. We don't know what we're going to find. So we should be cognizant of what kind of life might be there, if there is any life, and what it looks like, and what is intelligence. Is that a brain thing, or is that maybe a ecosystem? Like, what does smart mean? Yeah. So I think it's important to look at that aspect of approaching space exploration.
Doing things on other worlds that will impact them for a very long period of time in places where there might be life. I think that's a really important point and something I also think about a lot. So if anyone wants to jump into Q&A for that, that would be something we'd be happy to talk about more. But Dorset, go for it.
Absolutely. Overall, I think bringing everyone into the space program and making sure everyone have a representative there, that's going to be very important. All of us are really different, and that's a really positive thing. We need to celebrate it. That's going to make us stronger. I like to say we all are different, but we all are equal, and that's a really important thing. We need to celebrate and understand one another, and each of us is going to bring strength and knowledge to this, and we can have a better solution for each problem if we are listening to one another. And I think having everyone included in the space program, that's going to be the moment that we are coming up with the new ideas.
Very good.
Right, could I follow up on that?
Yeah, please, go for it.
Thank you. One of the things I think is really important, we've been hearing a lot about ways to bring minoritized identities and people into the mix, into the space program, into the scientific fields, people of color, queer people, women. So that's really important, and programs like yours, the SASA program is critical. We need all the initiatives all the time to make that happen. But I think there's a whole second half to that sentence, and that has to do with uncolonizing the space, as you were saying before, Frank, that's been so dominated by Western thought and all the cognitive imperialism that brings. And how do we do that? And I think that's what inspires me and drives me, is being I'm already in the room. I look like the people in the room, I talk like them, I come from the same backgrounds, predominantly as them. So I fit in that room, I'm safe in that room, I have power in that room, so to speak. So how can I leverage that? How can I utilize that? How can I help, and as much as I can, ensure that we're all on a journey to make sure that space is safe, and that taxpayers' very hard-earned money is not being utilized in a way that would bring harm of any kind to anyone in those places and spaces. And I think, to sort of do otherwise, to just let the space be as it always is and have everyone conform to it really puts us at risk for the achievements and the aspirations that planetary exploration and the space program and science, it puts those aspirations at risk. We aspire to serve all humanity, and if we can't do that here in a good way, and if we can't create a safe space for that to actually materialize, then I think we need to maybe focus on that first, and then see what comes.
Yeah, thank you. Charles.
Let me quickly chime in here. The future, how will the future of space exploration look like?
Yeah.
There's one way of addressing this issue, and you look at the issue of the climate change. Climate change is going to be, it's complex. And I often say that it's a problem that needs all hands on deck, right? It cannot be solved by one individual. It can be solved by one country. Everybody has to be involved, because all of us depend on climate, right? So then when I imagine the future of space exploration, I think having these different perspectives from different people will only benefit our humanity. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I keep saying everybody got to be involved, whether you're black, you're blue, you're white, you're LGBT, whatever, everybody has to be involved in trying to solve the climate change issue.
And
we are in retreat. Come to show 'em where I am.
Destroy the humanoid. Intruder alert, intruder alert. Intruder mana escape.